Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Paul Leslie, and I'm going to be your instructor for the PME GDE 815 Digital Literacy course. This is my first time teaching this course, so I'm really quite excited to take on this challenge. All right, so let's go and have a look at the course. So, in an effort to make my thinking visible, I've created a graphic which I hope helps to represent and helps you or helps me to visualize the relationship of the various aspects of this course. So the course starts on May 5th, ends on June 20th, way down here. So the first activity will be to introduce yourself in the context of your own teaching, where you teach, what you teach, and so forth. And that's really quite critical, because if you look down at the bottom of the graphic, you'll see that there are two group projects. So you'll introduce yourself at the beginning of the course, you'll do some work, and then by the time we get to Module 5, you'll be asked to review some of these introductions and find yourself a group of 2 to 4 people. Now, if you look at the overview of this graphic, you'll introduce yourself, and then the first 2 modules are really very much sort of introspective. And then the second 2 modules are more outward looking. So let me come back to those 2 points. So if you look at Module 1, Digital Literacy, you'll explore what exactly is digital literacy by sharing your own autobiographical experiences with digital literacy in terms of your teaching and your use of technology in your classroom. And then we'll move on to machine learning, and we'll examine how not only your own biases and terminologies influence what you find on the internet and in searches, but how the tools that you use to do those searches also influence those results. And so this is very much looking at your own practices and looking at your own self. Then we'll move on to modules 3 and 4, and these are much more outward looking and looking at how do your actions influence your students, so very much more outward looking. So we'll look at how do you design your classes and materials and so forth for digital justice. So how do you support your students in terms of equitable opportunities, presenting unbiased materials, and giving all of your students equal opportunities within that sort of digital context. We'll also look at how can you help your students to really see and understand what they're looking at online. And for me, this really gets to the very core of digital literacy. I mean, we have to use all of these tools, of course, but I think at the core of the concept of digital literacy is how do we know what's true, how do we know what's not true, and how do we make sense of it all? It's one thing to have a bunch of facts presented to us, but how do we then interpret those facts, and who do we look to help us interpret those? So this one, I think, really strikes at the core of the whole digital literacy. So once we do that, you'll then be well prepped to work with some of your peers. We'll look at how technology can be used to facilitate violence and other online bullying and so forth, which is occurring in many of our classrooms. We'll look at a few case studies, and you'll work on one. And then you'll wrap by looking at or doing an autoethnographic presentation. Now, because so much of what we do as teachers is done in a collaborative sense, you'll also do this as a group and present a sort of overview of what you've learned from the course and how you see yourself now harnessing all of these tools for the benefit of your students. So this gives you a little overview of the course. Normally, what I'll do is as we move through each module, I like to post another short video to explain a bit more in detail just about that particular module. So hopefully this gives you a good overview of the course. And you can see how each of the sections relate to each other. And don't forget, you will be working with some of your peers. And for me, and in my context, one of the greatest benefits I've received from using all of this technology is it has helped me to work with people quite literally all around the world. As you'll discover, I'm actually living in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates right now, and I'm sure most of you are probably in Canada. So right there's a great example of how technology can help us to collaborate. Anyways, that's almost 6 minutes, so I'm going to stop here, and I very much look forward to seeing you and seeing your work in the course.